What's going on, my musical geniuses? This is Introduction to Philosophy, and we are moving into ethics now. What is the right thing to do? And this in Thai is Jariya Tham, which I can't say. I used to think that Tham is do, Tham meaning do, but I think it's Tham as in like Thamma. You tell me if it's right or not. Ethics is a class that I have taught for about 10 years. Some of you have taken it, but some of you won't have it as a requirement, and so you won't ever have to take it. I will try to give you all of that into just 3 weeks. We'll see how well that goes. Usually we're asking in ethics, what is the right thing to do? And the question of what is the right thing to do usually brings up a system. And in that system, we say, what should everybody do? What should people do? What should other people do? And the question is usually, who says what is right and wrong? And it's usually a question of somebody else telling you what to do and you trying to figure out what is the right thing and the authority being outside of you. This is the way most of us think about ethics. And the first thing we think about is the law. What is the right thing to do under the law? Well, you might be able to think of some things that are illegal, but you think they're right. You might also think of some things that are legal, but they're not right. Can you think of any examples? They're worth writing about. For one example, in the year 2000, about 25 years ago, it became possible to download music onto your computer for free. Was that legal? No. Was it even ethical? No. But everybody could do it, and so everybody did do it. This is a situation where, like, everybody broke the law. How did we handle this? Well, the second question of ethics is, how should I live my life? Yeah, it's important to ask what is the right thing to do, what kinds of laws should we make, but the real question for you is, how should you live your life? And who should decide how you live your life? Are you wise enough to decide for yourself? Can you make your commands clear to you? And can you follow your own commands? If we go back to music downloading, you have the question of, if I'm stealing a bunch of music from artists who I love, how do I do the right thing? I'm already in this process of stealing. Should I not steal and instead give the money to Apple, iTunes, 300 baht per song or whatever it was that they wanted? It wasn't 300 baht per song. I think it was like 30 baht per song that they wanted. I didn't want to rent music from iTunes, so I didn't do that. What I did was make sure that when the band came into town, I would go to the show and I would buy a shirt so that I would be giving them money right to them. Amanda Palmer is the singer of the Dresden Dolls, and she was in a fight with her label, and people would go to her shows and they would immediately just hand her $10, like 300 baht, and say, hey, I'm sorry I stole your music, but I just want to hand you this money. So they were kind of like getting around the label in this way and finding their own sense of justice, saying, I stole, that was wrong, but what I want to do now because I stole is I want to give you this money. That's going to make me feel like I've done the right thing. So this is the question, right? How do you live ethically in this world as a person and as a musician? When you decide that it's not important to you to listen to somebody else, and I'm not saying you're doing that, but some people do, you get to the question of, do you have the wisdom to decide for yourself? Does everybody have the wisdom to decide for themselves? My daughter is 7, and she says, well, how come you don't let me decide for myself? And I'm like, well, you would decide to just eat candy all the time and never go to sleep. And I need you to eat food, not candy. And I need you to go to sleep sometimes because you don't know that this is important. But science says this is the way to build a good little body and mind. And so I have to make decisions for you. Sorry, because you don't yet have the wisdom to make the decisions for yourself. Does everybody grow up to get that wisdom at some point? Maybe yes, maybe no. Some people never grow up. Some people grow up a little faster than others. If you are deciding for yourself what is right, you have to make clear commands for yourself. Nathan, I demand that you exercise at least 3 times per week. Or else what? Are you going to punish me? Self? How do you make that command a little bit more clear? Can you put a time? Okay, I'm going to do this at this exact time. All right, I'm going to do this in this place. Oh, all right. Now you have a place and a time. Your command is becoming a lot more clear. So we usually think that the problem is that we are not following our own commands. I want to do the right thing. I want to be there for my friends a little bit more often. But are your commands to yourself as to how you're going to be there for your friends a little bit more often clear to yourself? One way that you can do this is to literally talk to yourself, which is hard in our society because normally people think you're nuts when you talk to yourself. I talk to myself all the time because, hey, I don't mind if society thinks I'm crazy. The easier way to do this is to write to yourself with pen and paper. You can ask me if this is why I give you writing assignments every week. The answer is yes. I am interested in you writing to me, yes. But really, I want you to write to yourself. When you write to yourself, you command yourself and you follow your own commands. You actually hear your own voice for longer periods of time than just, I'm hungry. I better order some lineman food, right? I'm hungry. I should go to G-Floor. Or, man, I didn't practice. I should practice, you know? You get these longer lines of command that you might be able to follow. Okay, so this question, how should I live my life, I think is more important than who should I follow. But that's up to you. Okay, how should I live my life? What are some of the systems that you could follow if you wanted to follow them? There are religions. There are also systems like utilitarianism, libertarianism, and various versions of virtue ethics that are not religious. So you could have a religion, or you could have an ethical system, or you can decide for yourself. And if you follow no system, what kinds of problems might you run into? You don't really have any God that's watching you, that's going to bust you. You don't have a universal system of karma constantly keeping score of what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And if you don't have some kind of a universal law that's above you, it's very easy to believe in nothing. And if you believe in nothing, this is a form of nihilism. Nihilism, ism means the belief in this or holding it up to be important. And nihilism is like the belief in nothing, or the belief that nothing is important, or that nothing is worth believing in. So before we spin out into the middle of nowhere, we need to have some kind of a center to our discussion of ethics. And normally I would do utilitarianism and then libertarianism and then virtue ethics, like I just said, but I'm not going to do that this time. I have here in my house The Republic that I've been reading for a couple of months, studying it a lot, and I want to start with The Republic, and that's going to be our sun. It's going to keep all of our discussions for today kind of centered around this one same text, and I will go and zero in on one question by the end that I want to ask you for today. So if you're brave and you really want to write about something really hard, wait until the end of the video. I will drop a pretty heavy question that I think is very hard to answer. So that'll be kind of our center of gravity in this. So The Republic, if you look up, how popular is The Republic, it's like the most popular book by the most popular author of all time. Plato and Socrates are kind of the most famous philosophers of all times, and this is his most famous book. It's taught in government, in political science, in philosophy, in literature, in all kinds of different disciplines. So it ends up being the book that is on more college syllabi than any other book. So if you're learning, hey, this is what happened in the Republic, yes, it's going to help you pass my little quiz, and you can write about it, and it's interesting and everything, but this will also give you like a shared vocabulary to talk to other nerds. Other people who have gone to university and have read books have probably read The Republic, or at least know what The Republic is. So if you're ever doing music criticism videos or something, and you start talking about The Republic, most of your educated audience is going to know what this text is. It's like, top 10 greatest books of all time. This book is up there. So Plato and Socrates are the two who are responsible for it. Socrates, as we met in the previous videos, he's a wandering teacher. He goes around discussing philosophy with people, arguing with them, and kind of like just trying to get in fights all the time. Plato was one of his students, and he was always walking around, writing down all of these things that Socrates was doing throughout his life. And he ended up creating his own school called the Academy. The word academic comes from the name of Plato's school. It's impossible to overstate how important Plato is for philosophy. Is basically similar to Bach, I would say. That's the only comparison I would make, was because so much of music theory is based on, well, this is how Bach wrote. Plato is kind of like that for philosophy, at least Western philosophy. Plato and Socrates had the idea that ethics and eudaimonia are related. Now, what is eudaimonia? We already talked about that in a couple other videos, but I want to define it a little bit better. If you break the word down, you have the word good in you. This daimon was the voice in Socrates' head, always telling him, no, don't do that. Right? He would always stop him from doing things, like abusing power or screwing up his perfect reputation, or, like whatever it is. When he had the ability to do something, he could do it. There was something stopping him, like a conscience, and he called that his daimon. He gave it kind of a personality. And this ea gives you the idea that it's a deep state, a lasting condition. This is similar to the idea in Buddhism where somebody will become like a sotapan, will become a never returner. Maybe you're not an arahant yet, but you have reached a state where you are so close to enlightenment that you're never coming back into the foolishness and suffering of a normal mind. So this eudaimonia seems to be a state that you can reach, and there seems to be some kind of sort of permanence to it. Like you get it and you don't really lose it. All right. Another way of looking at this, right, is the question that what is the right thing to do answers the question of how do you live a good life. These questions are together in ancient Greek philosophy. Ethics and living a good life have a lot to do with each other. So it's not just a question of like, can I get people to think I'm a good person? But it's a question of like, how do I live good from in here? And I'm starting to show you the big question I'm going to ask you today. So another way of looking at this is that you can have a very dry life where you are always purpose-driven, you're doing the right thing at the right time. Everybody would say that you're a good person, but you don't have a lot of happiness in your life. Similarly, you can have a life that has none of this. But something like a sweet life would be a life where you have a lot of pleasure, you get to party a lot, you get to laugh a lot, but there's not a lot of purpose to what you're doing. And these few people find a path that gives them pleasure and meaning at the same time. And this is what I hope for you. And ethics, it sounds boring, but I think that the main question of ethics is how do you get this? How do you take care of yourself and take care of others at the same time? And that's what I hope to guide you towards in this class, or at least guide you towards trying to figure that out for yourself. Okay, another way of seeing this is the Stoic triangle, where there's willfully taking on responsibility and carrying a heavy load on purpose. And this is kind of the meaning area of it. Over here you have live with arete, and arete is virtue. But for the Stoics, virtue is not like, are you good or not? It's, are you excellent? So virtue for them is a skill that you have to train. And that actually makes more sense to me because it's not very easy to be good. It's also not very easy to be good in a way that you can keep up and not resent other people for. Yeah, I'll do this for you, but secretly I'm starting to hate you. That's not an ultimate good. You can do better than that if you practice virtue. If you start to tell people, hey, I have these boundaries and expectations, and I'm going to do this for you right now, but I'm going to be honest with you, I feel like this is too much, and I'm going to do this one time, but I need to be clear with you about this. It's not always the right thing to do, but sometimes it is. It's very difficult to find the right thing to do. Life is tough like that. Last one is to focus on what you can control, and this is huge for Stoics. I am in the United States. Americans are so political. We're always thinking about politics. We're always thinking about Donald Trump. Me, I'm not a billionaire. I don't have an army. I'm not in Congress. I can't convince other Congress people to do what I want them to do. So my ability to control Donald Trump is zero. I can vote against him, but that's all I can do. So focusing on Donald Trump all the time would not be eudaimonic, according to the Stoics at least, because I should be focusing on what I can control. If my friend loses a job because Trump cut funding to helping people or something, and then I help my friend get a job, hey, cool, you're doing good, right? But if I get upset about Trump and just be angry about him all day, this is not eudaimonia. Okay, so many ways of looking at this. Now, Plato, our author, always asks a main question in his book, and he tries to keep that as the solar system that's always bringing us back. And he will, of course, wander into other questions because that's how philosophy works. One question starts to make you ask all these other questions. This is what deep thinking is all about, these like late night conversations that we get into. So one of these late night conversations was called the Symposium, and it was a bunch of philosophers sitting around drinking wine and talking about love. It's a beautiful book. You should check it out, or at least like watch a video about it. And it's the question of what is love. It's very interesting. And it's from 2,500 years ago. What did they think love was 2,500 years ago? Kind of interesting. Euthyphro asked what piety is. And piety is an interesting word. It almost means like virtue by itself, konatam. And it's kind of the thing that you should do. In Confucianism, we have filial piety. Filial piety is what should you do in your family because you have a family. And usually with younger people, that means listen to the people who are older than you. Respect your elders. This is according to Confucius. Confucius is not a Platonist. He's not an ancient Greek philosopher. He's an ancient Chinese philosopher. But that's where you hear the word piety a lot. Now, if you're a doctor and you're being pious, practicing piety, it's very important that you respect the respect that people give you as a doctor. For example, if somebody who's 17 years old comes in and they have a hurt back, and I'm a surgeon, and I can make 700,000 baht doing surgery on this kid, but I know that this is a kid who might just heal on their own, but I do the surgery anyway because I can make the money. This is not piety. I'm not respecting what I should be doing in my job. If I start telling you guys, oh, you can have whatever grade you want, you just have to send me ha baht, right? You give me ha baht and I'll give you an A, right? I'm not respecting my role as a teacher. So piety is not just doing what's right in the family, doing what's right in your country. It's also doing what's right because of who you are. So this is kind of like a master virtue. There's one for courage. There's one for virtue. Again, and this is slightly different in the Meno. There's one for friendship. How do you be a good friend? And the Theaetetus is about what is knowledge. That was an interesting one. I did a whole fourth year seminar just on this book. How do we know what we know? But we've been doing that for 3 weeks. We can cut that off and move on to ethics. The main question in the Republic is what is justice? What does it mean to be doing justice? A lot of times when you're asking this, you'll say, hey, is it right to kill one person in order to save this many people? And Batman is sitting there not pulling the lever of the trolley car and killing the Joker. And all of these people who get killed by the Joker every time he breaks out of Arkham Asylum are dying because of Batman's inactivity. This is normally the way that we talk about ethics and systems. And this trolley car comes from utilitarianism, which we'll talk about eventually, but I don't want to talk about systems yet. I want to talk about what benefits you, right? How do you have a relationship between ethics and living a good life that benefits you? So let's dig into the book. The main question is justice. And the question that we get hit with right away is it good for its effects? Is justice good for its side effects? If I'm somebody who practices justice and somebody says, hey, did you say, I can say, yes, I said that. I don't have to think first and be like, oh, why did I say that? Who did I say it to? What did I mean when I said it? Was I lying or not? If you don't lie, you don't have to think, right? You just like, yeah, I said that. What? Because I think about what I say and then I just say it. Yeah, I said that. If you heard I said it, maybe I did say it. Did you say this? Yeah, I said it. Easy. But if you're lying all the time, you have to have this big memory and remember all your lies. That's hard to do. So a good side effect of practicing justice is that you don't have to remember all the things that you said. Another one is worrying if you've done the right thing and if you're going to get caught. Well, I mean, if you just do justice all the time, it's like, hey, did you do blah, 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 blah? Yeah, I did that because it was the right thing to do. So I'm proud of all the things that I'm doing. I'm living as if there's a camera on me all the time. So when there is a camera on me, I'm walking right. Make sense? Is it good all by itself? Is justice good all by itself? Do you want to just feel good within yourself? Do you want to be your own judge and say, I judge myself to be good, and that's all I need? You don't agree with what I'm doing? I don't care, because I'm doing what's right by my own lights, and that's all I need. If I'm doing that, I'm satisfied. When I'm not doing that, I'm not satisfied. I'm my own judge, and I'm trying to get right with myself so that I can be okay with myself. Another religious version of this is I try to live so that I am good in the eyes of God, or I am having good karma, or I am aligned with the universe, or whatever it is that your religion is. And you could say, that's it. As long as I am right with heaven, that's fine. If the laws of humanity don't like what I'm doing, I don't care. What do you think? And then the last choice is that it's good for both. It is good for the effects that it produces. It is good for the internal sense of, hey, I feel like I'm a good person because I'm being a good person. Both of these things go together. And our answer that we get from Socrates and Plato is this, is that justice is good for both. And the attack that's going to come at him is going to be, no, man, it's just good for the effects. And I think it's a strong attack. It's so strong an attack that I invite you to write about this week, and I think it's going to be very hard to write about it. Okay, so another way of putting it is the extrinsic benefits versus the intrinsic benefits, or both. Now, our friends, the Stoics, I'm reading a book about the Stoics over here, and they are so hardcore about everything being intrinsic that they say the extrinsic benefits are nothing. Your reputation is nothing at all. It only matters what you are doing within, right? This is the Stoic extremism. Respect, man. Okay, so the beginning of the counterattack comes from Thrasymachus, and Thrasymachus is a sophist. Remember, the sophists are the people that teach you how to lie, cheat, and use beautiful words to get out of problems. Thrasymachus says that justice is the interest of the strong. So what does that mean? What's the interest of the strong? That means whoever is strong wins, right? If you are able to do shoulder flies with 2 cats, you are strong. Well, I mean, nowadays, what does it mean to be strong? I think that you can project a lot of strength just by wielding money. You can buy a security force to follow you around, and you can get your yam to go kick people or something. Now it's a little bit harder because of social media. Sometimes even rich people are getting in trouble. What did it mean to be strong for thousands of years? Power usually meant that you had a lot of armies that were loyal to you. So somebody like Cao Cao, Zhou Chou, would be somebody who would be considered powerful. And if you get on the wrong end of him, you're going to get into some trouble because, this is Samgok time. Being powerful meant being able to wield the power of life and death over other people. Right? Plato's brothers take over the argument because Thrasymachus just kind of like gets defeated by Socrates. He just kind of leaves. And then Plato's brothers, Glaucon and Adeimantus, are like, hey, it seems like he didn't do a very good job arguing his point, and we don't believe that fake justice is better than real justice. And Socrates is like, of course, man, I know you guys don't. You guys are cool. You guys are great guys. I understand. But keep going. And they're like, yeah, we want to continue the fight from his position just to see what you're going to say, Socrates, because Socrates is like the great teacher. He's like, let me throw this really difficult question at you and see how you react to it. And this is going to be the main question of today. So they create this like 5-part attack against Socrates, which is the interesting thing. I have it for you to read yourself if you want to. There's a link to book 1 and book 2 of The Republic. If you don't want to read book 1, instead you just want to read book 2, the beginning of book 2 is really where these guys start to throw it down. Have to read it if you don't want to. I'm going to explain it right now. So they give a 5-pronged attack and they try to say, hey man, maybe fake justice is good. Maybe fake justice does give us things that we do like, and let's look into this. So the first thing that they do is they bring up what is called the social contract. And I say Confucius is probably the first social contract theorist. And here we're finding something like the social contract in Plato. And that basically means everyone has been on the receiving end of evil. Everyone has had somebody lie to them and, you know, oh my God, you really ruined me because I thought I could trust you and you lied to me the whole time and now my life is all messed up because of you. Man, I should have never trusted you. You're such a bad person. And you want the law to be able to like catch people like that or stop people like that from doing what they do. We've all had it, right? We've all had somebody be bad. So it's not that we understand that there's some like natural good. We understand that like doing evil, like lying, pretending to be good, but really coming out and being evil in the end, you can get a lot of stuff from sneaking around and doing this. And we don't want to receive evil. We don't want to be on the wrong end of that. We don't want to get scammed. We don't want to get robbed. We don't want bad things to happen to us. So we create all of these laws, and these laws are to stop people like that. Because we're all people like that. That's what they're basically saying. Like, hey, look at the structure of our laws. They're there because we know that by being bad, we can get lots of good things. Especially by pretending to be good and then really being bad. That's the best way to get good things. So our legal system in society is kind of pointing to the fact that we're all like this. So that's part 1. And they say, hey, the sophist was trying to say everything is the interest of the strong. That's not a very good argument. Let me fix his argument a little bit and throw it at you a little nastier. And he says, everybody wants to be unjust, but they want to appear just. They want to be bad, but they want people to think you're good. That's what everybody wants. They want to live in a world of good people. They want to pretend to be one of those good people, and they want to be bad. They want to live into a world of justice and be the one person that's unjust. There was a movie called The Invention of Lying where everybody is always telling the truth and this one guy starts lying and then he's able to like get all of these great benefits because he's able to lie and nobody else can lie. This is what people want. So he goes on to this first thought experiment, which is called the Ring of Gyges. And this shepherd goes down into like this tomb that just opened up in the world, and he finds this cool ring. He puts it on and he turns the ring around in his hand, and he becomes invisible. And when he becomes invisible, he hears people talking about him like he's not there. And he's like, oh, no one can see me. This is amazing. So he immediately gets the council of shepherds to send him to court, and he goes to court. He goes and he conspires to take over the government. And when he takes over the government, he just starts doing bad stuff immediately because he has this power and nobody can tell who he is. So he has no accountability and he has nobody he can't have his reputation hurt while he's doing these bad things. So the Ring of Gyges basically says anyone who had this power would use it for evil. Got my Voldemort and Palpatine. Gyges teaches us that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's the first half of it, saying when you're really, really powerful and nothing is checking you. This is why we have checks and balances in modern governments. You can do whatever you want, and when you can do whatever you want, that ruins people. why are we so surprised when someone who's famous and rich and powerful is actually a good person? I'm going to talk about Keanu Reeves in a few slides here. Why are we so surprised with Keanu Reeves is because he's rich and famous, so he should be a bad person, but he's not a bad person. Whenever somebody should be a bad person and they're not, we're like, wow, why are you like this? Your power is supposed to make you a bad person. Pitun Body Slam is like a really good example. Why is he such a good person? He doesn't have to be. He could be a terrible playboy, but he's not. Why? Why isn't he like this, right? We expect people who are powerful to be like this. So the Ring of Gyges also teaches you that it's not just that the guy is powerful, it's that he's invisible. Nobody can tell who he is when he's doing bad stuff because he's invisible. So it's not just that the power corrupts us, it's the lack of accountability. And this is one of the things people say about online spaces. Everybody's a bully in the comments because you don't actually have to be there. Another version of this is road rage. When you're driving around with tinted windows in your car, you can beep and you can yell curse words because you don't see other people. But when other people see you, it's a completely different situation. When I'm driving in Thailand, I'm usually behind tinted windows and I'll just do whatever. I'll just be crazy. Now I'm in the US and I'm driving and everybody can see who I am. So I'm like, oh man, I better not drive like I drive in Thailand. So being able to be seen, transparency, accountability, these are things that are important in ethics because they tie you to your reputation. And Plato's brothers are saying it's actually the reputation that's important. That's actually what we guard. Do you believe that? Okay, so he goes on to his next argument. And this one I think is one of the strongest. He says, all right, so now, let's do another thought experiment. Let's think of two extreme examples. One is pure justice, but everybody thinks the person's bad. A good person, but everybody thinks the person is bad. Or a bad person where everybody thinks that this person is good. Who would have the better life? Socrates. This is the nastiest one, right? So if you're reserving your time to write, this is what you should write about, because I think this is the hardest thing to write about. Okay, so number one would be a perfectly just man, but everyone thinks he's unjust. In the book, the footnotes, it's not from Socrates because this is written before Jesus, says, does this sound familiar? And this is, kind of the story of Jesus. The passion of the Christ is that Jesus was tortured and killed by the people around him because he was not properly recognized as the just person that he was. He was a person. He wasn't supposed to be God. He was supposed to die as a person. And he suffered greatly for it because he was betrayed and tortured and killed. So this perfect character of somebody who is good, but whose falsely bad reputation gets them killed is such a powerful story device. This is sometimes called the greatest story ever told. Somebody who's innocent, who's suffering. So this is a perfectly just human being, but everybody thinks this person is unjust. And he says in the book, what would happen to this guy? He would probably be tortured to death. He would not be happy. Things would not be good. And we can see that that is what would happen. Because if you have a reputation for being really bad, bad things are going to happen to you. What do you think would happen to him? Bad things, right? So let's switch and think about the opposite. The perfectly unjust man. Somebody who is just dark in their souls, like terrible, terrible person. But everybody thinks he's just. Everybody thinks he is a good person. He maintains a fantastic reputation. This could not be somebody like a famous criminal. This guy obviously had a lot of money. He had a lot of good things happen, and then he got busted. But we know that this guy's bad, and we've known that this guy's been bad for a long time. These are people who we don't know who they are. So you can't really think of an example. Jesus is a good example of somebody who's perfectly good, but had suffered for being perceived as negative by the powerful people at the time. We don't know who somebody would be who would be seen as like absolutely perfect, but would actually be very bad under the skin. So if you imagine a person with the best possible reputation, and my example is Keanu Reeves, I looked up on the internet like, hey, who are my students going to agree is just like like the best possible person, like just a very good person. And the internet also said, oh, Keanu Reeves is the best person. There's like no scandals, but there should be some scandals. He'll be like stopped outside of a club or something, and they'll be like, you can't go in. He'll be like, oh, all right, fine, I'll wait. And then somebody finds out, hey, door guard, you made Keanu Reeves wait. Oh, what? I didn't even know that was Keanu Reeves. And he'll just be out there waiting. And he's just always like being a good, normal person. Everybody loves this guy. I actually looked up online. There was a bunch of people being defrauded by fake Keanu Reeves accounts. So people are using his perfect reputation to try to defraud other people. This is from the LA Times. That DM from Keanu Reeves, don't get your hopes up, right? It's not Keanu Reeves trying to help you, right? Or he doesn't need you to send him money. So if somebody had Keanu Reeves' reputation, what benefits would they have? Are you thinking about all throughout history? If you have a very, very, very good reputation, even if you're a bad person, when you want to go do a business, you say, hey, bank, I need a loan. And the loan says, you need a loan? Well, you have a great reputation. You have a great credit score. Here, let me give you a pile of money. If you need a partner, hey, do you want to get into this contract with me? Sure, we don't even need lawyers because you're such a good person. I know you'd never do me dirty. Let's start a business together. Let's go for it, right? When it comes to relationships, what's part of what gets you into a relationship with the kind of person that you want to be in a relationship with? It's your reputation. Hey, I like this person. Oh, he's great. Oh, he's wonderful. He's great. Oh, you think he's great. Easier for me to think he's great too because you think he's great. Official positions easily come because of your reputation. Honors. Paul McCartney became a knight. He's like Lord Paul McCartney or something. You get a lot of positive fame and you don't get any negative fame, and you can use all that to get the things that you need to get. It's reputation that gets you the benefits, not actually being good. Do you believe that? So back to the main question. Is justice good for its effects? People think you're good. Or good all by itself, which means you're actually good? This is the main question of today. What do you think the answer is? I think it's a heavy problem that gets thrown at our friend Socrates. So the perfectly unjust character who's actually seems just, this is another really good element of storytelling. Maybe some of you know who this Johan character is from the manga Monster. I've heard really good things about this. He's perfectly able to hide himself, but he has this very evil core. Another version of this would be Adrian Veidt in The Watchmen. He has this grand plan that he's able to figure out how to mastermind everything in the end. And even in the end, when the audience and the main characters find out how bad he is, they can't do anything about it. So he's even protected his reputation after revealing that he was kind of the main bad guy all along. It's really a brilliantly written thing. Another version of it is this Emperor Palpatine, who becomes Darth Sidious, the main bad guy of Star Wars for 9 movies, right? He's able to deceive everybody and in the end takes over. So these characters are really great as a character in a story because it's so powerful, because we get so angry that this person is succeeding even though we know that inside they're bad, but we can see clearly why everybody is believing them, right? So justice within versus reputation. This is our main question for today. This is what I'd like you to try to write about. I wonder what you think. Is it more important to you as a person to judge yourself as good or to be judged as good from the outside? And I don't know if I showed you this yet, but there's a line from a book about weirdness. Western, industrialized, educated, rich, and democratic people tend to be more focused on guilt, which means if I judge myself as bad, that really hurts me. If other people judge me as bad, whatever. But the whole rest of the world, it's the opposite. When the outside is judging you as bad, you recognize that as bad because, I mean, if you get kicked out of your society, you lose everything, right? So your reputation is everything, not this sense of justice within. So I'm saying that this would be something that is more pushed in a Western context. Do you agree? I don't, because Confucius, who's usually telling us, shut up and listen to the government and shut up and listen to the old people, gave us the concept of the Zhenzi. The Zhenzi is the superior human being. I don't like saying the gentleman. This is how it's always translated. I like to say the superior human, right? The excellent human, the one who practices arete. What did we find out about the Zhenzi? The Zhenzi is somebody who has to be quietly awesome within. Do you care that you are not being recognized from outside? Well, shut up about that, right? That's what Confucius says. You need to be quietly awesome. It's my favorite Confucian concept, and it's about cultivating virtue within. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. You just actually really, really be good. And that's from Confucius, right? So this idea is like, the Westerners are like this, and the Asian people are like this. No, it doesn't work out that way. Platonism, Christianity, ancient Greek philosophy, Kant, there are all these very strong Western forces trying to get you to judge yourself from within and be truly good and don't pay attention to what's on the outside. The words of Jesus, he was saying, do you see these people loudly praying in the streets? They have already received their reward and they will get nothing from my Father in heaven, which means you see these people praying loudly and trying to show how religious they are. That's their reward, is other people seeing what they are. But the kingdom of heaven is not going to recognize this nonsense. This is just them trying to show everybody. So there it is in the West. But in the East, we have it in Confucius saying, be the Zhenzi. Doesn't matter what other people judge you. You have to be good, right? Okay. I'm very interested in this, obviously. So, speaking of religion, do these extreme examples remind you of anything? The Buddha had this life of constant pleasure, and then he went into a life of constant suffering, realized they were both too extreme, and tried to find something in between. I didn't really think that one through. I just wanted to throw it at you because we're in religion land. Moving on. The brothers' last argument is that society actually aims us towards faking virtue. It doesn't aim us towards being good. It aims us towards faking being good. And here's a couple of books that drive that home. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie teaches you tricks to remember people's names and remember one thing about them. And if you can recite these things, people are going to like you. They actually do work, right? The 48 Laws of Power tell you a bunch of things that sound very nice. And then there's a few of them that are just terrible. One of them is avoid unlucky people. So when somebody's unlucky, you should just cast them out of your circle because that lack of luck is going to get on you. It's just an awful way of thinking. And it probably does lead to success, but it's not eudaimonia. And if you look back 500 years, you have the prince, Machiavelli. This was a gift to a prince, and he was a great political philosopher, and he said, I'm going to give you this book, and it's going to tell you how to get power and how to keep power for a long time. And some of the things that we have from this is the idea that if you can choose between being loved and being feared, you should choose to be feared. Being loved comes and goes. Being feared, that one is always the safe bet. If you can have both, that's great. But choosing to be feared, that's more important, right? And this is from the book The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. And we get the word Machiavellian from him. And Machiavellian sounds evil. It's not evil. It just means doing what you need to do to get what you want, which is not necessarily evil. It's just Machiavellian. Evil would mean hurting people in order to hurt people for no reason. Machiavellian is just selfishness. We also get the word realpolitik. We don't get it directly from him, but this is when nation states are being Machiavellian. You don't say Japan waged war against us because Japan is evil, or Japan is going to give us money because Japan is good. We don't think really about good and evil. We think that they are selfish and they're trying to get what they want. They have national interests that they're trying to protect. This is realpolitik. Another concept that we talked about in an earlier video was Hanlon's razor. It's probably not true that people hate me. It's that she's tired. It's not true that you didn't get this position because they're discriminating against you. It's probably that somebody else got in because of nepotism or something. You should always assume that there was selfishness and stupidity at the core of everything. And this is kind of a materialist, cold, dark way of looking at things. How can I get something out of this? All right, I'm going to do that, right? This is kind of a practical way of doing things. And it does lean into nihilism. And this is what society is really wanting us to do, according to these kinds of books and according to the brothers. If you look also at this idea of face culture, the question is, do we want to be good or do we want to just appear good? If we're trying to keep face and not lose face, right? Not that. This is the idea that na is not you. It's this reputation that you're trying to keep up. And the brothers are telling us that we're not supposed to be good, we're just supposed to appear good. Do you believe this? Now, finally, he gets to heaven and he says, what about the guardians of virtue? What about the ultimate judges? What about the great eye in the sky? What do they think? What do we get from what we know about the gods? And remember, the time of Plato, this was the Greek gods. And the gods were like Zeus and Poseidon. Zeus was the king of the gods, and he was the lightning bolt thrower on Mount Olympus, and he could do all of these great things. Poseidon was the god of the seas. Hades was the god of the underworld. Athena is the goddess of wisdom and war. Apollo was the god of the sun, rationality, and number. There's this new god who showed up, Dionysius. He was the god of religious ecstasy and the theater and wine and all of these other things. We have all of these very interesting gods, and they have all of these very interesting stories, but most of what they were doing was actually pretty dramatic, you know? Our friends in India, the Hindu gods, they're all enlightened and meditating in the cave and trying to protect the universe from getting destroyed. And yes, stuff happens, but they were nowhere near as bad as the Greek gods. The Greek gods were just drama, like drama all the time, man. So the gods, if we look to what they're doing, they are corrupt. Zeus would often show up at somebody's house pretending to be a beggar. And he'd be like, oh, I'm so tired, let me in. And if they would say, no, we don't know you, we're not going to let you into the house, he'd be like, oh, by the way, I'm Zeus, and he would kill them all. So this is why in ancient Greece, they had like the law of letting in strangers all the time, because you never know if it's going to be Zeus or not. Zeus would also wait for a husband to go to work, and then he would transform into that husband and be like, hey, honey, I'm home from work early. And a lot of demigods were born from Zeus's behavior like this. If you look up the behavior of the gods, I'm not going to say anything beyond that, but there's so much beyond that. They were always doing things that we would say, that's wrong, that's bad, I don't even want to hear about it, right? The Greek gods were crazy. So if the gods were corrupt, what kind of message does that tell you about how we should act in society if the greatest beings alive are not following morality? And this is another meme that I found that was pretty good. The Greek gods depicted in popular media are like Superman, who has all this great power but doesn't ever do anything wrong. The Greek gods in the original text are like Homelander. And I don't know if you know who that is. He's on the TV show The Boys. And this is a scene where he kind of like loses his mind and starts lasering a bunch of people. And this is kind of the sort of thing you can expect from Homelander. He's not good, but he's ridiculously powerful. It reminds me of gods. Another version was this Brightburn that was written by James Gunn. He's another kind of comic book guy, and he wrote this evil Superman. It's a very, very scary movie. The singer Ronnie Radke from Falling in Reverse made this video, Watch the World Burn, and he's also like using scary eye beams to fight against non-combatants. So it's a very like Homelander, like evil god moment, and he's, you know, pretty famous for being kind of a bad person. Another kind of way of depicting supernatural beings is the difference between like the Twilight vampires. They are depicted in media as these like vegetarians. They're good, you know, they're not killing people. And in the first Twilight movie, this one moment happened that I thought was kind of interesting. Is this character is Edward Cullen, and he's fighting with the main bad guy, and he wins the fight, and he's going to kill him. And then I think this is the big daddy of the coven, the like group of vampires, stops Edward and says, no, you can't kill him, because if you kill him, it's going to ruin your humanity. It's going to ruin your soul if you murder him in anger right now. You're going to regret it later. So I'm going to order this other vampire to kill him. And he orders the other vampire to kill him so that Edward can keep his soul intact, which is very interesting. And there was a game called Vampire the Masquerade, and the characters could have a different amount of humanity, because over the centuries you end up losing your humanity. The author Anne Rice writes about this in Interview with the Vampire, The Vampire Lestat, Queen of the Damned. Those are the best three. Memnoch the Devil, I think, is the next one. A Tale of the Body Thief. They start to get pretty bad after that, but the first few chronicles of the Interview with the Vampire books are really amazing. She's describing these multi-century old characters, and she's describing them very well. It's not like a situation where you have like, they don't really have natural predators. They're the very top of the food chain. They're drinking the blood of humans, and they're living forever, and they're like, oh, what now? You know, and they're kind of like gods because they are immortal. They're far beyond the power of humans. They can die in these certain ways, but they don't typically die. What they do is kind of like live these lives of great power and luxury and meaninglessness, sort of like the Greek gods. And when I see these Twilight vampires, I'm like, all right, some of these aspects of it are kind of interesting. But them going to high school for 700 years is a little bit painful for me to watch. You also have the vampires of Underworld. And there was a point, this is Celine, in the fourth movie, which got like a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes or something. Everybody hates it. She's looking for her child, and she's just woken up from being frozen or something. And it's a future evil world. And she finds some scientist. After killing everybody else around, she gets the scientist, and she picks him up by the throat, because in any vampire movie, they got to pick him up by the throat, but she only weighs 50 kilograms, so she has to walk him up against a wall and pin him up against the wall by his throat, and he won't tell her anything, so she pushes him through the glass breaks, and he's hanging out over nothingness, and she's like, tell me where my kid is, and he tells her, and when he tells her, he's not like, oh, now I'm going to save your life. She just drops him to his death and walks on. And I'm like, that's how a vampire would treat a human being, you know? And it's the movie has to be rated R because only grown-ups are ready to see this. But it's like the behavior of a multi-century old creature who is worried about whether or not her kid is going to be alive or not. Is she going to spare a human life who didn't immediately tell her where her kid is? No, she's going to be a vengeful god. So what do you think the gods would be like? I think they'd be more like that than like that. But Plato doesn't like any of this kind of thing. He doesn't like this realistic depiction of what super powerful beings would be like. He says, this is all lies, the gods are good. And we may talk about this again later, because so much of the Republic is based on kind of a review of religion / literature and popular media. You know, they didn't have movies back then. They had the Greek tragedies that were being performed, and sometimes the gods would taking parts in the Greek tragedies. And the way that the gods are supposed to be shown, he said, we need to completely look at this in another way, because this is bullshit. But Plato's brothers are reading these books, and they can see in these books that the gods are acting this way in these books. So the gods are corrupt, right? This is what we have. The gods are corrupt. But the other thing that we get is the gods are corruptible. The gods can be bribed. And here's one way of bribing gods, and this is not from the ancient Greeks. This is from the people of South America and Central America. The Yucatan Peninsula had the Mayans. Mexico had the Aztecs. Peru in the Andes, they had the Inca, who did human sacrifice less, it seems. The great empires of what is now Mexico had like a lot of human sacrifice. And what we're seeing across many, many cultures is in a lot of situations, it was child sacrifice. It's like, let's kill this baby for the gods, and then we won't have the problems that we have because we don't have science yet. This was so common in the old world that one of the first stories that we run into in the Bible is Abraham. You've heard of Abrahamic religions. The Abrahamic religions are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. This is at least half of the world follows the God of Abraham. So the God of Abraham tells him, hey, this son that you've finally been able to have when you're 80 years old, people lived a long time in the Bible, take him up to this mountain and offer him as a sacrifice to me. Kill your own child for me, your God. And he goes to do it. And at the last moment, the angel comes by and stops his sword in the air and says, stop. You don't have to kill your child, and gives him instead this lamb and says, you can sacrifice this animal instead. And this means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. What I'm saying is this is so common that a guy will hear God say, kill your own child. And he'll be like, well, we do this kind of thing all the time because child sacrifice for gods is just one of the things we do. So I guess that makes sense, right? I think that this is a shift between saying we don't sacrifice humans anymore. We just sacrifice animals now. And we move from sacrificing humans to sacrificing animals. This is kind of like a cultural evolution. Again, we're talking about everything all at once, but this is something that I'm pretty certain about. You can fight about it if you like. Does this exist in Thailand? I'm not going to click on this because I don't want to break my screen share. This is the second time I'm recording this. But these city pillars, Lak Muang, they used to say that there were ghosts under there from the human sacrifices that would be made in order to protect the city. And they would do pregnant women because two spirits in one body is a really super scary ghost that's going to protect the city. Now, what do we see? We see sacrifices of fruit being offered for jiaozi. Sometimes you see food being offered, right? So these sacrifices being offered towards spiritual beings is something we see all the time in our lives. And Namdang, I don't know what you guys think. Why is it that these ghosts like Namdang? I think that it's because it represents blood. You decide what you think, but this is what I think, is that it represents blood. The blood of humans, the blood of animals, and then we get Namdang. So society is getting a little bit less violent as time goes on. Okay. So the gods can be bribed. They can be bribed with human sacrifice, animal sacrifice, Namdang. You can bribe the gods with all kinds of things. So these elements of religion are not telling us to be a good person. They're telling us to bribe the gods. Don't be a good person, just tambun, make merit. When you say make merit to a Westerner, they're not going to understand what you're saying because merit means arate, it means excellence, and you can't get that by buying it. I was thinking about this a lot in the Sangkom class because we were talking about the sort of tambun, where you tambun, you give things, and then you're going to have a better life in the next life, or maybe you're going to have luck in this life. You're going to bribe the gods in some way, or bribe reality, or I don't know, is the Buddha granting wishes? I don't know what you think. But the Buddha did teach that giving to conscious creatures is a good thing. Liberating animals is a good way to tambun, go and liberate the fish into the sea. That's good. Help some human beings. That's good. I saw like a homeless guy sitting on the street and he was missing a leg or missing an arm or something. And I said to him, tambun, dai mai kap? And he said, oh, okay. And I think I gave him money. then I just walked away like feeling like, okay, cool, I got good karma. I helped a human. But it's more helpful if you help an enlightened being, and even more helpful if you give a gift to the entire Sangha, because they can continue to preach the Dhamma, and so you're helping more people. But the gift of giving an entire monastery is not as good as having one moment of true loving kindness within yourself. So the question in Buddhism, is it more important to be seen as good, to tambun and show everybody that you've done this good thing, or even to quietly give a monastery? It's better to create a perfection within your own heart. So this question is answered in Buddhism. Want to write about that? I want to read about it. So all of this is thrown at Socrates. And I'll go through the whole argument again one more time before I throw it at you. This is the second to last slide. Is justice good for rewards from the outside? Everybody thinks that you're a good person and they want to work with you. They want to give you things. They want to use you to advertise their products. They want to put you in a movie. They want to be around you. Or in itself, you know that you're good within yourself. Maybe you have benefits in the next life. Can you separate those from intrinsic benefits? Are there higher extrinsic benefits? What do you think? Or is it both, like Socrates says? Now, here's the whole argument. I'll throw it at you. You can defend yourself against pieces of it, or you can totally accept it and tell me why. We have the social contract. All of our laws are set up to defend us from these people who want to do fake justice and scam us. That's why we have laws. We have laws to protect ourselves from people seeking benefits by doing evil, because everybody wants to do it. It's a very popular thing to want to do because it makes sense. We know that it gets us good things. The Ring of Gyges teaches us, hey man, if you were invisible, what would you do if you were invisible? Probably bad things, right? Even if you decided to do good things, the way that you would do them would be bad and illegal and stuff like that. Because I think about what I would do if I was invisible. I would do good stuff, but I would break so many laws doing the good stuff. Power corrupts. Who would I be 5 years from now? I don't know. In the boys that I mentioned before that had Homelander, all of the invisible characters are always very bad. So the other one is the extreme examples. Oh, and also The Invisible Man is like 100-year-old book. Every time the movie comes out, the Invisible Man is not a good person. The Invisible Man is bad. And the reason that the Invisible Man is bad in all of literature is because you know that people being able to see you makes you good, makes you be good, because somebody will say, yeah, I saw that person do something bad. But if you're invisible, nobody can see you. And that's one of the reasons I think that like the worst people in the world are probably not famous people who are bad. I think that it's people that we've never seen before who are bad, because invisibility and evil would go really, really well together. And to be honest, I think that that's also true of good people. I talked about Buddhism a moment ago. Forgive me for talking about it for one more minute. We had a big scandal about famous monks being bad. Like many, many famous monks were bad. In my personal opinion, being famous and being a monk don't mix, man. So I like that Ajahn Bia. I like him. I think that he's really cool, but everybody warns him, hey, now that you're becoming famous, you got to watch out, because fame corrupts. Invisibility corrupts, but fame also corrupts. And to my mind, these super famous monks, being super famous and being a really good Buddhist, they don't mix that well, right? It doesn't seem like the skill set for being a very, very good monk and the skill set for being a very famous monk have a lot of crossover. Now, there are some famous monks who I like, but when famous monks become bad, I think that if we're thinking people, we should think, yeah, man, I mean, he's a famous monk. Like, why are you famous, bro? Okay, go on. Argue with me about that if you like. Two examples that are extreme. Is it more important to seem good and shine this great reputation out into the world? Or is it more important to actually be good within? What gives you more benefits? Clearly, it's the reputation. Having a good reputation gets you all of the good stuff. If you seem good and nobody thinks that you're good, you might be killed by society. You might be imprisoned, right? If you turn the bad reputation all the way up, you end up in jail or dead, right? And when you're in jail, you still need a reputation. So if your reputation is not serving you in jail, you're going to be killed in jail, right? So Plato's brothers throw a great argument by basically saying, your reputation really does matter. And Socrates is trying to say, no, it's the good within. What do you think? What do you think? All right. Culture itself seems to tell us that we should seem good. How do I seem good? How do I polish my personality so that I could throw it at people in a way that makes them accept me, like me, fear me? How do I get these benefits out of using these techniques? Sophistry, right? The last thing that we find is that the gods themselves, the Greek gods, are corrupt and they are corruptible. And this is true here too, right? Spirits, we bribe the spirits. You go to the temple and you can tambun. It's not about doing good. It's like go to the temple and you can tambun your way out of these things. But when you really look into the doctrine of the Buddha can't necessarily be bribed. The Buddha says, actually do the work within. And the same is true with Christianity, where, yeah, society can be bribed, but Jesus and God are trying to say, you can't bribe your way into these things. You have to actually do good things, right? Christianity had a crisis about 500 years ago. Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses to the door, and his biggest problem was that the Catholic Church was selling indulgences. They were saying, yeah, your grandmother just died and she's in purgatory. If you come and give a bunch of money to the church, we will pray for her soul in purgatory and she will get out of purgatory faster if you give money to the Catholic Church. And Martin Luther said, that is horrible. There was a bunch of holy wars fought in between the Protestants and the Catholics for years and years and years over this kind of a problem. And it has, been cleaned up. There are not a lot of people walking around thinking that God can be bribed. The Greek gods could be bribed, right? And powerful spirits in Southeast Asia can be bribed, right? You give them things. And if you're not giving them things, what are you doing? What do you think? The gods are corrupt and corruptible. This only really works for the Greek culture and a little bit for the animistic culture. So, how would you answer these challenges? Do you want to go to bat for the idea that good comes from within and that being a good person is what really matters? It's not about the reputation. Can you bring in the idea of the Junzi? The Junzi is somebody who's not trying to guard their reputation. They're trying to work on the center. They work on the root. That's what Confucius says. So this isn't an east-west thing. This is are you going to try to be the Junzi? Are you trying to cultivate virtue as an excellence, as an arate? Or do you think it makes more sense to just try to have a good enough reputation because the reputation is the thing that really gets you the things that you want? It's a really, really good question. And Socrates spends the whole rest of the book trying to fight this. What can you do? Write it. I really look forward to reading it. Hopefully this will end up being a big part of our discussion when we have the next discussion section in January. I think I'll see you after the new year. Have a fun new year. And I hope you do something really fun. Have fun playing music. I look forward to talking with you guys again, arguing with you about these philosophical concepts, and have fun trying to find eudaimonia. That is your homework, is to try to find the good life. How should you live your life? Peace.